Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let me welcome all you to this open house of our official plan. And this is the first of two open houses that we'll be having. This one now and one in Madawaska this evening at 6 o'clock. You know, the official plan started in 2022, and we've already had a couple of meetings. I think it was in August last year. And these are two meetings that the council decided to have. And based on these meetings, that this will come to council December 6th. We'll work on the amendment and the resolution of the official plan. So I want to just first say that we are on the unceded territory of the Algonquin National people, and I would like to acknowledge that. As Tracy said, if you haven't signed in, please sign the sign-in sheets. And I would ask for those that are on Zoom to please maybe just state your names so that we put it on our attendance list. Okay. Who wants to start?
Jan Lucier, Haley Property Owners Association.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Bill Rodnick, Counselor.
Thanks, Bill.
Sandra Collins, Councillor.
Thank you, Sandra. Anyone else? Is there anyone else on Zoom? We were expecting another person.
One more for sure. Diane? See your name?
Maybe something wrong, okay. So at this point then, we have a record of who's here.
Sorry.
Oh,
Diane Green, property owner, Whitney.
thank you.
Looks like that's everybody.
Yeah, everybody, thank you. Just before we do, I turn it over to Anthony Homick, our planner from J2PG Consultants. There's just a couple of things I would like to do at this time. In the council chambers today, we have our former mayor, Jane Dumas, from the township. Jane spent 14 years, 2 years as a councilor and 12 years as the mayor of this township. And she has done a wonderful job, and she's led the path very, very, very well for me. So I just wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of the council and staff of this township, Jane, to present you with a small presentation of our thank you for all of the years of dedicated service.
So nice. Thank you, everyone. That's awesome. Well, I really do appreciate it. And you know what? About 13 and 7 nights of those days that I was there were the most wonderful days of my life. Thank you so very much. I really do appreciate that. That's very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We were trying to do one for Councilor Shallow, but I don't know if he's caught on and maybe left. Or...
There he is. Oh,
there he comes.
There we are.
Okay. I see. Councilor Shallow.
Sorry.
That's okay. I have the same problem. I would like to, at this point in time, it's my great pleasure to say a special thank you to Richard Shala, who has spent 24 years of dedicated service as our elected councillor in this township. I've had the pleasure to work with Richard back in the 80s, and we've had some very robust meetings and long meetings, haven't we, Richard? And so I just wanted to, on behalf of the staff and council, and all of you, to say a special thank you for your 24 years of dedicated service. And I'd like to present you with this small token of our appreciation.
Very much. I never ever. It was just by accident I came here, but. No, actually I planned on coming, and I certainly enjoyed working with you, and I think you said they were robust. Some of them, I don't know if Mr. Clark isn't here, would tell you, and you would know, into sometimes close to 1 o'clock in the morning.
I remember.
7 o'clock in the evening, and you know, over those years, as a group, another mayor here, accomplished a lot. You know what? We maybe never always agreed, but when it was over, there was a consensus. But we certainly did. We certainly moved the township forward, and guidance from the top, and it was great. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. We have one for Councillor Dave Harper for 16 years of service. He couldn't make it today, but we will have it delivered to him. So thank you, everyone. That's
Yeah,
one of the,
maybe, I wanted to ask you one question. This with the township of Central Dublin or the township area also? Both.
both. It's both. We couldn't get it all in the pot.
Oh, no, it's likely more than that, because I was on years ago with,
The roads board.
a long time ago with, I believe,
Fritz Sorensen was in for a short
And
time.
then again, and anyway,
Thank
but
you.
anyway, you know what, it was great, good, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you, Council.
Thank you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony Homick, our planner, as I already said, who will lead us through the open house today and tonight. And he'll do some short presentation, and then we'll hear from anyone that may want to talk or speak. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. Appreciate the invitation to come down today. Always a pleasure to come here and see everybody. So just as a bit of a refresher, as the mayor mentioned, we started the official plan review process in July 2022 with a kickoff with staff, and then we held a couple of special public meetings in August of 2022, and that was really to get the ball rolling. We heard a lot of good public feedback in August of last year, and where we have got to today and how we're here this afternoon is that on July 5th of this year, council directed staff in consultation with myself and my colleague Forbes Simon to circulate the draft official plan, which is what we refer to as the red line official plan, which I see most of you have a copy of, to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for their review and comment. And just so everyone, I'm sure everyone at the table is aware, is that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is the approval authority for the Township of South Algonquin official plan. So we have to have the ministry on board with the decisions that we make here. So we circulated the official plan to the ministry at the end of July. The ministry took 3 months to review it and get back to us with comments. And we, Brian, Tracy, myself, and Forbes met with a planner from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing last week to go over the ministry's comments. The way the review process at the ministry works is what they call a one-window review process, where the planner at the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing gathers the comments from all of her partner ministries like the MNRF and MECP, and then provides comments to us. Unfortunately, the ministry is not providing us with any written comments. So we had to do our best to take notes during the meeting, and we will have to do our best to implement the changes suggested by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, because at the end of the day, with the MMAH as the approval authority, anything that they disagree with, they will strike and change as they see fit in the official plan through what's called a ministerial, the minister's order, minister's decision on the official plan when it goes to them for final approval. There's really, I know we talked about this in previous council meetings and previous public meetings. There used to be a lot more, let's say, constructive back and forth between the township and the ministry, but that those days are long gone, and now it's kind of, we got more or less two kicks at the can. We got to submit the draft to the ministry, we got some feedback, and then whatever goes to the ministry now after being adopted by council will then ultimately will get back from the ministry the modifications that they see fit. So as we touched on at the beginning, the next steps of today are open house meetings this now and then later this evening, 2 open house meetings where really we are continuing to solicit feedback from members of council, members of the public, and really we are, again, as we said from the outset of the process, we would like to continue to hear from everybody right up until the end, until we are presenting a final version of the draft official plan to you, council, that would then be sent on to the ministry. So we still have time to hear from yourselves and also members of the public. So the next step is the statutory public meeting next week at the council meeting. And we're still digesting the comments from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So I think where we see this going is that myself and Forbes will likely work to summarize all the comments from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs in a report. And we will also then take a stab at updating the draft official plan, and that would then be presented back to council for council endorsement and then on to the ministry. And the ultimate goal really is to have a plan that goes to the ministry that comes back with as few changes as possible. So really, I don't have a presentation. The purpose of the open house meetings is to hear from anybody who's got more comments, questions, comments, concerns. We do have some large size Schedule A and Schedule B maps to the official plan, which we think are a significant improvement on what's in the official plan right now. So, I hope everybody has had the opportunity to flip through the official plan, look at the schedules, and we'd welcome feedback. And I'm happy to answer any questions that council or members of the public or anybody on Zoom might have.
Well, thank you, Anthony. Let me just go right into opening it up for, go ahead.
And actually, I should have mentioned that we would highly encourage, I will take as good notes as I can, but we would highly encourage written submissions from members of council and certainly members of the public. It makes all of our lives easier to try to synthesize everybody's comments if we have written comments to consider. So just wanted to put that in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any written presentation that they'd like to present? Let me just see if there is anyone. No one on Zoom. No one, I don't see. I'm going to send you written comments, but maybe I can just open the floor for people just to have general conversation, and we'll try to record it the best we can. If anyone should have presentation and they want to send it in, there's still time to do that, right? So it's not that it's all, we have an open house today, now it's closed, we can continue the dialogue. Okay, so let me turn it over to any member of council that wishes to say anything. We're quite bunch today.
I have a question, Mayor LaValle.
Councillor Collins, go ahead.
We looked at the official plan back sort of 10 years ago, and we tried very hard as a council to allow development and severance of our large lots of land. But there was a sticking point where I think the ministry would not give way for those severances to be on township maintained roads. There's a lot of our private landowners with large lots of land that would like to sever, and they're on private lanes and roadways. Have we been able in this plan to actually change that wording. And I know we tried when we first addressed this. Have you been able to put something together that we can go forward to the ministry yet again with this as a request? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. I see Anthony kind of looking here. We'll just give him a minute and maybe he has an answer, or maybe it's something we'll have to continue to bring forward.
Page 72.
Page 72.
There's, 72 and 92 also in the land division policies. So the policy that is in the draft official plan that went to the ministry is 11.1.8, which states that new lots for permanent residential development must have frontage on public road that is maintained year round. So that is specific reference to a public road. I will turn to 72. I think it is more specifically covered in the land division policy. So, I mean, I suppose that is a discussion point for council. I don't remember, I wasn't at the meeting in July before, so I don't know if this was brought up again in the summer, where we landed on that.
It's brought up all the time.
Yeah, it's
Very passionate, we're very passionate with that. Because
yes.
It is, it's hindering development for us, and especially on private laneways is another, like, if they have legal access, deeded access, why can't we divide lands? And I think that's a hindrance for us.
Right.
So based on that, thank you, Councillor Collins, for bringing that up. We will endeavor to put that back in. Councillor Jane.
Mayor LaValle, I think it's really important that this goes back to the ministry, that they know that private lanes can be on a 100-acre lot. We have a private lane on a 100-acre lot. They're not just little 20 by 20 foot lots that we're talking about. I'm sure township staff has made that very clear to the individuals looking at this, but they have to know that, like I say, it's not a piece of property that some people may want to subdivide that could only accommodate a trailer or something. You know, we've got lots of people with, 100 acres or more lots, and you know, would be very happy to subdivide to their children or whatever.
Thank you for that.
We can almost, it's like, especially I'm using your property as an example. You have everything else in line to subdivide. You got the acreage there, the 2.47 acres. You just don't have.
We have highway frontage.
We do have
of
the
100-acre lots.
Yeah.
But it's just that, those private laneways, we had everything else, but just maybe it not being on a township maintained road or a public maintained road.
Richard?
Sorry, am I allowed to comment here?
Yes, you are. Go ahead, please go
I
ahead.
think this is an excellent topic right here. Because when the zoning bylaw was coming in, we were being pushed to, it was suggested at the last, either all along or at the last minute, that it was going to be 300 meters. A 50-acre lot, you weren't even going to be able to divide it, 50-acre lot.
Yeah.
50-acre lot is 200 meters.
I'm not a mathematician, so
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
basing it on you.
And anyway, it was changed at that time. So, if you could divide a 50-acre lot in two. Now, in other townships, when you read all the information about them, and we don't have to go very far, just go south into the Bancroft. There's a lot of 100-acre lots and 200-acre lots where they put in a private lane and can possibly divide up, say with family, for example, and they had 100-acre lots, they could divide that up into, with a proper laneway and divide them the opposite direction rather than township frontage. And the way it's really laid out here and has been in the past, and maybe council, and I'll take, likely me that was involved and we made a mistake, sorry, but it should have been set up differently because we were really restricting to what we were going to be able to do and what people may have wanted to do with a piece of property. And if, honest, if you had a family of four and you wanted to give 100 acres away, and you made an excellent laneway on one edge of that, and divided it the other way, there's a good chance that everyone could end up with 20 acres of property rather than, only be able to divide it two ways, or whatever the regulations were, and you'd have a long, greener sized lot rather than something that was more usable and, so anyway, I think that's an excellent, if that, the council could look at that and, or if it's possible that, we relax that, because those private laneways, the cottages, the way it's set up at the present time, a lot of the cottages are all on crown land. You're crossing crown land to get the majority of our cottages. And it doesn't show it that way here. It's, not just the way it is, and, it's really restricting, township and, development, et cetera. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I think all something that, I think Anthony taken notes that we'll certainly look at and make sure that we emphasize it. Thank you both for bringing that forward, because, sometimes you forget what should be put in these, and so, appreciate the comments. Does that answer your question, Councillor Collins?
It sort of addresses the problem, but I know this is possible because other townships have had the wording changed so that the access is on an existing maintained roadway, and they've taken out the municipally maintained. They've changed just one word, and the municipal affairs have allowed their plan to go through. So it is possible just to change the wording very slightly and allow this to happen. I spoke to someone at the previous Roma meeting, and they'd actually managed to get this through. So it's not an impossible thing to do, but I think it's something that would really help our township grow. Let's be quite honest, unless you're a hunter, unless you're someone who likes to ride round your own property, many of these 100-acre, 200-acre lots, I'm sure people would love to sever, and we would get building, we would get residential building, and I think it would help our township grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony?
Through the mayor, Councillor Collins, if you have an example, we'd be happy to take a look at that. Making reference to specific townships or who you were talking to at Roma.
I did, and I cannot remember, but it was someone who was who was at Roma with me, and I'll try and go back through my notes. But it was seriously, all they altered was maintained road. They took out township maintained road. So it's a maintained road, and they didn't go into details whether or not it's a consortium, whether or not it's a group that maintain the road or anything. They just put in the word fronting onto a maintained road, and left out municipally maintained. And that was all they changed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's been well noted, and I'm sure it'll come back to us when we do a rewrite.
Anthony, just a note, 972 would have to be amended if you were able to make any changes there as well.
Okay, Anthony, you sure?
Yep.
Okay, any other suggestions, comments, adding, anything anyone wants to add? Any other concerns by anyone?
I've got a real trivial thing here, but,
Go ahead.
like you mentioned, I think it was page 14. And I remember Right at the bottom of the page, I think it should be, it needs either a comma or the growth of the two villages of Whitney. It's not two villages of Whitney, it's either the villages of Whitney and Madawaska, or
Hamlet of Whitney.
if it says the two villages, then it should be a comma possibly.
Okay.
It sounds like there's two villages of Whitney. Right or wrong?
We could just use the word two.
Yeah, we don't, yeah.
Yep, sure.
Just need to fine tune it, that's all.
Sure, that's an easy one.
Okay, so that's been duly noted, fixed. I've noted that and he's making it fix, he's fixing it. Jane?
On page 92, one of my favorite topics is there. And it's at capacity rate. Have we got any clarity? Have we got any direction from the various ministries that that's an ambiguous term that means nothing, that just really irritates me? And I think, I don't think it should even be in this document. But what are they saying about at capacity rate? What are they? How do they determine that? What does it mean to the municipality?
Are you on page 92?
Yep. 92, yeah.
Okay. At capacity, like.
So, and Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last correspondence that we had from the Ministry of the Environment was that they were gonna be looking at them again in the future. Effectively, the at capacity designation comes from the Ministry of the Environment, who have at some point in the past, done studies on lakes that are managed for lake trout and have determined that these lakes are at capacity for development, meaning that new development should be, prohibited or as a very, very minimal. And I do understand obviously the constraints that places on development in the municipality. So we don't really, to answer the question, we don't really have a very good answer from the ministry yet. That certainly no suggestion from the ministry that there are lakes that their statuses could be changed. I believe that it would be fair to say that all of the lakes that are at capacity in the official plan are being suggested to be carried forward as still at capacity lakes.
My last conversation with Victor Castro, who is kind of in charge of that, I think, at the ministry, was that at the current time, there were no known changes to the at capacity designation within the township, but that they would be in the future looking at them again.
Right.
And that was the extent of my conversation with Victor.
If I may, they told us the very same thing 10 years ago. Like, they're impeding the vitality of this community, not just this community. There's lots of other communities, but like, is anybody home at any of these ministry departments? And I hope this is on Zoom and I hope somebody is hearing this, because this is just ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. They expect communities to build, to become thriving communities. So, we can pull in our taxes so they can pull more money away from us. And yet we can't do anything. So again, it's a favorite of mine, and Richard will carry on from here, I'm sure. But that's just not, if we ran healthcare like that, well, we're working on the information from 20 years ago, and we can't bring it forward because it's, it's just not really important. This is really important, and I know you know that. We all know that in here. But if we don't squeak and squawk, like it's we're complicit to their audacity of doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just, are they too big? What's the problem? Richard, tell them, what's the problem?
I don't know what
Go
the
ahead,
problem
Richard.
is. Darrell Valley and Dumas, I'm sure he's had meetings. Go back as far as Fort Carl Savage. He tried to turn us for years to find out how Gale Area was designated. And am I wrong in thinking that Gale Area at one time was the only lake in our township that was designated this way? And all of a sudden now we have this number of lakes
Yeah.
on the list. And when you look at it, if you look at, it's almost like, we want to control what's going to happen in the future with the land claim. If you look at the land claim, and we've all looked at the maps, and they're all possibly on the wall, or used to be, there was going to be a lot of development on the Eel Lake.
That's true.
Balfour Lake was circled in there. It almost looked like
There's no development.
we're trying to throw a roadblock up, for example. But why can can all of a sudden we go from one lake where we couldn't get any information on how it was designated that way to that number of lakes? There's something wrong. They haven't got the background and can't provide it, then we should,
Richard, just to comment on that, I actually went back and searched my email conversations with Victor Castro and his staff. And I did receive a copy of a PDF document. I actually just sent it to Anthony. I think they already have that. It was a water quality analyst that was, the data had been compiled in 2016. And when I was reaching out to them, they were in the process of compiling the 2019 data. They were actually supposed to update it and send me the 2019 data. But their biggest issue is dissolved oxygen, I think, in all of their templates. So that's, I think, one of their key triggers from looking quickly at my emails here. Their biggest issue is dissolved oxygen in the water, and that's why one of the primary criteria for the determination of at capacity lake.
And did you ask them for that information?
Yes, I did. I actually forgot that she was to send me the 2019 because her comment was, Victor's asked me to reach out to you regarding the available lake trout reports we have for South Algonquin. At this time, we have a report that discusses data collected in 2011. Our 2019 data is still in raw format, and attached is the last report we have. She said, I can send you the 19 data as well, just let me know. So we maybe could follow up on that 2019 report, Anthony, and just see if we can get that data sheet from them.
I appreciate that, but you know what? It's a lack of oxygen in the air, but it's a lot of something else, or in the water, there's maybe something else in the air. I think it's being sarcastic, but that plaque said 24 years. 25 years ago, our clerk was trying to find out information on this and how they came to this. 25 years later, that's a quarter of a century. And we've included more lakes, but we haven't got the information or the background. It's almost like Hillary Lake. If you look at how much of that lake is, there's just a very small portion of it that has any development on it at all, other than the cottage way up the lake is 9 miles long. So, no development stuck in this corner, but where the river flows out, but it just doesn't seem to.
There's no science behind that.
You know what? I think they're struggling. Somebody's struggling to try to convince people like us or you folks, whoever, that there's an issue there. And
well, I think we hear you.
sorry,
We hear, no, don't be sorry. We hear both of you.
Yeah.
And I think I assure you will certainly follow up with the ministry again and try to get more information on this and explain to them and tell them how we feel about it and see where we go from there. But the points are well taken from both of you, and Nancy's making notes, and I've made a note too.
One of the language that I have seen in some of these in the past, and I don't know whether the province with their changes in PPS will allow it, but sometimes there was an allowance in there for development on at capacity. They were at the time, they were highly sensitive at capacity lakes under conditions that included undertaking an EIS that determined that it would cause no additional nutrient loading to the lake. So do we already have that provision in there related to development on at capacity lakes?
For the lake managed lake trout, so they're lake trout lakes that they're not at capacity.
Well, that's the only ones that are at capacity anyway. It's always the lake trout lakes.
So there's just an observation, the list now contains, or the list is comprised of a lake in every one of our wards. Because every one of our wards has an at capacity lake, and it's usually the largest lake in the ward. You know,
Balfour Lake, out in Dickens Ward is an at capacity lake and there's not a single piece of property on it. And it's definitely not even, I don't believe there's any lake trout in there either.
So right now, the sensitive ones, like the ones that are managed, are Aylan, Belfort, Cross, Hillary, Joe, Lobster, Lower Hay Lake, Macaulay, and Mackenzie. And at capacity ones is Balfour, Hillary, Joe, Lobster, Lower Hay Lake, and Macaulay. So Aylan Lake is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's, and Cross Lake are the only ones that are.
what page is that list on?
92.
92 and 93.
Okay, I got 92 and then 93.
And Brian, if I may, I think we could talk about it after, but I think we could share that 2011 report.
Oh, absolutely. And when
So
I get the
that people can read
2019, I'd be more than happy to share that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how helpful it'd be to share the raw data, but once we get something from the 2019 sampling.
Well, I would look to see if they'd provide me with
Yeah.
a similar report that,
Yes.
if nothing else, has had the updated data transcribed into it with a new date and the title page.
But I think it would probably be helpful to share that 2011 report, because it does explain the work the ministry's done.
Has done or says they've done.
Says
anyway. Yes.
that they did in 2011 and previously to make those determinations, so I think that would be, we could certainly share that. And to your other point, Brian, just before you move on there is still the caveat in 5.3.6 on page 47 that says new law creation is not permitted on at capacity lake trout lakes. However, council may consider the creation of new lots in certain circumstances where it can be proven to the satisfaction of council in consultation with the province through detailed environmental studies that development shall result in no negative impact on the lake. So that's really asking for an EIS. So there is, yes, it costs money, but there is still that opportunity for at capacity lakes.
They're doing it much.
EIS is environmental and temporary study.
Impact.
Impact study.
But
So that could be
Oh,
very
by all
costly.
it can be, not always, but yeah, I mean, it does cost something.
In time,
And time, but yeah, you would have a qualified biologist.
right,
Typically, we come out and we do an evaluation of the proposal, so
okay.
that possibility still exists.
Another avenue we could look into.
We've
Yeah,
actually
well,
had
you could
2 so far, I guess, for Aylan Lake,
Yes.
2 EISs
Mhm.
for development.
Why would the township have to jump through all these hoops to try and prove that they are wrong, or someone else is wrong because they just pull these names out? And look at Lobster Lake. How many cottages are on Lobster Lake? How many cottages are on Joe Lake or Glistening Lake? I think there might be one cottage
One.
up in the bush that you can't see the water.
I think there's one, yeah.
One of those lakes, and then another two, there's on each one of them. You know what, honest, it almost looks to me like when they look at this land claim and what some of the plans might be, they're trying to get in the way of it. And we want to work, I would hope the council of the day, someday, our hair you may have less of it and a different color, when it all comes through, but, why not to deal with some of these issues and, just because they can't prove the facts now, they just, I don't know, anyway, I said enough about it.
Well, as former employees of the ministry, we know sometimes how things work, Richard, don't we? Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're, you know, we have to challenge things, I guess, and I think in this situation, we'll definitely follow through. And, I'm sure we'll get back a whole litany of why these lakes are at capacity. So I think the onus is on us as a council, to follow through. Thank you. Is there any other discussion on it? I don't want to close anyone off. I'm just saying that we hear you, and, we'll see, why 25 years, why you have to wait, and why 25 years later, we're still having the same issue. Okay, are we, is everyone okay with that? Okay, anyone on Zoom wanting to add anything or say anything? Anyone else in the chambers?
Now,
Go
on
ahead.
a different, I didn't bring my notes, I had notes and I wish I had this, an old fashioned paper, but
I hear you.
regarding, garden suites. Looks like we wanna, you look at this, we wanna manage our waste, save our landfills, wanna be responsible recycling. We'll allow someone to build a garden suite. And I wouldn't have the figures, possibly Councillor Pigeon would have that, what it might cost to build. I think there's an 800 square foot, there's a limit on what you can build on one of those. We might be able to give you an idea, if you look at the maximum, what one of them might cost. And, but anyway, it's in our small community where we don't have places for our elderly, an elderly would sooner feel a lot more comfortable in the yard with a relative than they likely would in a home. Better quality life possibly, and I'm not knocking both places, they're very important, but people just feel more comfortable in their own surroundings. But if someone was going to build one of those, we're saying that we're going to decommission it. So basically, we could be putting it in the dump in 20 years, because there's a maximum 20 years on that. Now, why would anybody go to an expense? Because they're likely doing it out of the good of their heart. They're likely not going to, and even if it isn't family, if it's someone else that was renting, there's likely a heck of a lot more demand to rent for long term than there is demand to put it in a dump and decommission it. So even if the province or other places in the province has a 20-year limit on these, we can be a leader rather than a follower. And I think council, and I suggest to council that we look at that, and to me, that's if you're building today, you're building, the building inspector is going to be there. See that the building is built properly if it's a new structure.
Anthony,
A
is that
woodshed will last longer than 20 years, for God's sake. And we're saying we're going to tear it down or move it.
Says they should remain portable.
I'm wondering, is that legacy language that's in the old OP? Because previously legislatively, they were only allowed to be there for a maximum of 20 years. So I'm just wondering if that was carry forward language that just got brought in from the OP, but now garden suites are permitted. So the granny flats that they used to call them years ago, they were only allowed to be, you'd have to pass a bylaw and they were only allowed to be there for 20 years and then they had to be removed from the property. That was the way the provincial legislation was. So I'm guessing that that's legacy language that probably could be corrected now.
Well,
Yeah, it's page 21 at the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a point very well taken. This, as Brian suggested, is language from the previous version of the official plan that was not amended. What we will do is we'll certainly take a look at the language in that section as it relates to the current enforced legislation and delete anything. I would suggest something like that 20-year provision should just be deleted altogether.
Okay, thank you. I
think you're on the money there.
Okay, self-reportable, that remains.
No, I think it just,
Okay, the whole-
I think that whole
You're gonna build something that's gonna last
2.8.6.
more than 20 years, more than, okay.
of some sort. And I think 2.8.6.6 similarly would maybe be deleted as well. But as I said, we'll review that against the current legislation on secondary dwellings, and we'll delete whatever is not relevant or legal anymore, really. Yeah, no, thank you for that point.
Now, there's another place here. You folks have mentioned that it's not more than I have, but where it talks about the rural part of our township is, it kind of has a negative spin on it regarding cost or.
Okay. The rural policies start on 38.
Page what?
Page 38.
38. Mentioned your Wallace settlement in Cleveland.
No, it talks about the general rural part of the township. And it says something about a negative cost for maintenance or something. I don't know.
Then it's not 38 then? Are you on page 38, Richard?
It was.
You were, okay. I'm trying to find-
Page.
Is it in more of the sort of preamble at the beginning of the plan?
Just. I don't think it was a new part of a redliner.
Okay.
It was something that was adopted by previous council. But it's not. I just didn't think it fit, because it was talking about crown land, it was how the township was spread out over crown land. Well, really, our township, if you think about it, was formed by the logging industry. You look at all the different places that there were mills. Mine Ward had a number of small mills, from big mill with the Craig going to small ones, to various lakes. Allen Lake, one on the river, various, Deal area had two mills, one here, one up the road, now another in the bay down there. But that's why our town, how we're, between the railroad and the logging industry, that's how our township was formed. So, it was scattered out. And we talk about it in there, how important it is. How important it is that we have 80% crown land for
Page 65,
for uses, and
that's crown land.
but at the same time, we're talking about the negative, going to add costs or just a small little one-liner there, and I just didn't think it fit. Because we're seeing it on the other hand in about 4 places where we're talking about crown land and the logging and logging and tourism and everything else. And
It's probably up near the front. Like, so if you start on page 10, that's where the plan has location, geographic, economic, context, history for the municipality.
I apologize, I'm delaying your.
No, more delay.
We're here all afternoon. I am at least. And there's reference to the 80% in 1.1.1.
I could flip that to council
Yeah, absolutely.
and,
Yeah, if you send it to us.
but at the same time, I guess what I was getting at was the ruler, we're saying how good it is to have all this crown land, and I fully agree. But at the same, and then we talk about what it's gonna cost maybe to plow the road, or what's gonna be possibly increased costs in the rural area. But at the same time, the logging, once the logging happens, and we have seen it, years ago, we used to only log in the winter and cut the lumber in the summer. But now they're logging year round, and the roads, logging roads are equally as good as the township roads. So, but what goes hand in hand with that is you got your emergency services that has to go out there for the ATV trail, has to go for the snowmobile trail, has to go for fire protection, and so on all these crown land logging roads. So I don't see, I just didn't think that the small little one-liner about the township, the way it's laid out, should stand out compared to what logging, or what crown land has, because.
You're talking about making it
Like,
more
Dickens
positive than
Park.
the negative wording, is that
Yes, with something to do with.
how it's worded? You want it, you're talking about having a more positive wording as
Yeah,
opposed to
or-
how it's
or not even
negatively
township.
laid. I hear you.
We need everything here in their township,
Yeah.
and, I just didn't think that it fit very good.
Okay.
So maybe if you find it, you
Yeah,
could
I
let
will
us
flip
know or
it,
let
yes,
us
I have a moment, notes.
Sure. We still have time.
Yeah, I'll send it to David, who.
Yeah, if you can find it,
Oh, yeah.
send it to us for sure. We'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Is there
It's your
anything
call
else?
Whether it fits or not. and-
Yeah, no, it's important. No, we look forward to getting it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'm still
Jane?
stuck on page 38 with the rural areas and reading the introduction and the description, and you know, I mean, that's basically where we can do some development in our rural areas. It gives a list there. And what Richard was also saying, the desire to prevent excessive development on the waterfront or within the villages, because we don't have any more land within the village, other, you know.
Not much.
So it's very much directing us to the rural areas for development. And I think that, you know, that's something that people should be aware of, you know, that it goes on to say permits limited development in the rural areas so long as this conforms to the standards laid out in this plan. And then it goes on within the township rural areas, development in those locations where a previous history, so Richard, that's your timber, you know, of settlement already exists, such as, for example, the Wallace settlement in Sabine will be particularly encouraged. I don't think, maybe we are, maybe I don't know that we have been encouraging or letting people know. We actually have areas within this plan that are prescriptive to development, like residential, I would presume, or whatever. So, you know, this is our document for our community, and I think it should be as well, I mean, not really the decision of council, but as someone that lives here, you know, it would be really good if we could let people know that our area is actually where some development could happen. And I don't know if that means subdivision of properties and whatever, but we're making a statement here, so. And then it goes on to tell you what's permitted in the rural designation, so.
In addition to that, like you talked about much earlier, I guess, and Councillor Collins raised it, was, different access for a private road, being allowed to have a private road. Township doesn't have to plow it. That's up to the landowners to do it. If that could be incorporated, you know what? There is lots of opportunity as we all know, and those old homesteads around here. And they were old settlement areas, and some of them had churches. I believe, Lyle Township had one out there. They had a school out the way. Sabine had a school and a church. A number of schools in Sabine and, the church, so, they didn't have the facilities, didn't have the hydro, and they had to move out, move with the times, so, but there is lots of opportunity out there.
We had a really good dance hall in Sabine.
They certainly did, great.
We all danced there.
The dance that lasted for 3 days.
And ate for 3 days. Okay, well, that's noted.
Mhm.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There's one place in here it mentions, and it's been a sore spot with me because where I was raised, someone decided that they would have a dog kennel. And you went to visit my parents, and you couldn't carry on the conversation for the sound of the dogs. And it talks about in here where I believe it's a kilometer and a half away from a resident. It should actually be a kilometer and a half away from private. From a property where someone could build. For example, if somebody had a lot and because there was no home on it, and then someone decided in the meantime to move a dog kennel in there adjacent to that property, just because there was no home there, it would really limit or restrict what
People can do on their property?
their quality of life. I sat right here at a meeting and I was told that the dog kennel was going to be up the road here, down the road. It's going to have a barrier and a shelter, and you wouldn't be able to hear the dogs anywhere in the town. Well, I'm telling you, I live up in the hill over here. The window was open in the summer, you hear the dogs playing. So I really think that wherever that's worded should be.
44.
It's noise pollution is what it is. Well, I didn't want to noise pollution. I'll tell you. Whatever way that could be wrote so it's for control. I'm not saying that we shouldn't allow it to happen. It just we should protect the people that have the property
Yeah,
around it.
it says the use is located at least 1,500 meters from existing rural residential settlements.
Page 44.
That,
Right at the
page
bottom.
44, right at the bottom.
What I would suggest on that is the language in that policy is not explicit to your point about whether that's property line, building, it just says existing residential developments. So you might interpret that as to the building. But my suggestion would be that, I mean, we could look at tweaking this, but my suggestion would be that this is something to update when the township updates the zoning bylaw. Because the zoning bylaw would provide that very explicit direction, and you could specify in the zoning bylaw 1,500 meters from a property line, from a property zoned residential, for example.
Okay.
So I think that would be better suited to,
In this
The
rural
zoning.
areas where you wouldn't have a kennel within within the villages, right? It's rural.
Well,
It's deemed, it does state rural areas.
we'd have to look at the zoning bylaw. I don't know if the zoning permits it in the villages, but I don't think it does, yeah. Maybe they have to be in a rural area.
even if you're in a rural area, the adjacent property owner should have some quality of life, not listen to a 24-hour dog.
Yeah, I'd be upset if my neighbor had 100 huskies.
Honest, is anyone here?
There's a kennel that is just down the road from where I live. And it's probably a kilometer away. And 5 o'clock every morning, and 5 o'clock every night. Breakfast and dinner time, it's noisy. The rest of the time, it's normally good.
All this,
And
they're all making up along here.
But
I don't think up the road where it used to be, where the Viking is located.
Yeah, I know,
It had to drive those people crazy.
yeah.
And they say, yeah, how do you, oh, I know, don't worry about it, I don't hear it. Don't hear it, oh, jeez. Anyway, I just think it would, protect the property owners within that,
Yeah.
kilometer and a half, that's all.
Hey, got Jane?
The other thing I meant to look at, and I forgot, but we've had municipalities that abut to us or are within our geographical area. Do we have any statements in here about wildlife reserves or zoos or cat farms or, you know, like
Exotic animals?
They do have that, you know, coming in, buying property, and the next thing you've got lions, tigers, and
We have an exotic pet bylaw.
that's a separate one then, Teresa?
Yeah,
Okay.
but we passed it, yeah.
But should that, I mean, somebody that looks at our official plan that, you know, and they don't go to our bylaws, should we make a statement here that we don't have any place? I don't know. You just want to get the message out before, you know, people buy property.
Before they buy it.
They tend to buy property and then move in at the dead of night, and next thing you know, you've got a zoo next door to you or a wildlife sanctuary, so.
I think we have, yeah.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
I think it's a very good point because that was really, really bad what happened down in, that wasn't Hastings, that was, no, it was Hastings.
Hastings.
Yeah.
We passed that bylaw shortly after all that went.
Yeah.
That happened.
It's detrimental to the neighbors, rural conditions are normally not the best. I have never been there, but, you know, been to one or two there.
I'd like to get to 2.8.4 on page 19.
Page, Sean,
Page 19.
thank you.
2.8.4, the specific forms of housing permitted. The red line, part of that red line is the ability to service the development with water and sanitary servicing. I'd like to implement the word proper into there as well.
With proper water and sanitary.
Proper water and sanitary servicing.
Or approved.
Yeah, we'd want to use some language that, reference to, I don't know, ministry guidelines or something like that. If you're referring to
Yes,
adequate wells and septic systems.
that's right.
What
Okay.
article are you on?
2.8.4.
Okay, thank you.
Now, 2.8.5.1, additional residential units, ARUs. For rental purposes, okay, so now, accommodation for rental purposes, line 2, increasing the supply of affordable accommodation for rental purposes and for providing alternative living arrangements for those. I'd like to implement the word, long-term rental.
Can you, repeat what policy you're in?
2.8.5.1, additional residential units are an efficient, cost-effective means of increasing supply of affordable accommodation for rental purposes and for providing alternative living arrangements for those by virtue of their personal circumstances, okay, who may require the support of others who live on their own. So, but that word right there where we're at the second line for rental purposes, I'd like to make sure that, long-term rental is implemented in that phrase.
Could I comment? I could say our township is really changing. And the rental is really changing. If someone went to the expense of building a structure and they couldn't get the type of person to rent that they require. You still have to pay for the structure. You gotta be careful, man. Because sometimes that when somebody moves out, unless you've been in that business, you won't realize the costs that go into repairing a structure. So I guess what I'm saying is you have to select your tenant. But if you can't find the right tenant, you still have to pay for your structure. So by saying it's long-term, it should be, I feel it should stay just the way it is as a rental building so that somebody can pay to keep it. You have to pay for these buildings, but you can't afford to pay for a building to have somebody move in that's basically telling you what they're going to do, when they're going to move out, if they're going to move out, when they're going to pay, and if they don't pay and stay, and you can't get them out, then you have to go through a whole bunch of procedures. I'm telling you, I've been in the rental business for 30-some years. I know what I'm talking about. And I can show you some pictures, and you would not believe some of the situations that you can get into. Thank you.
Wow.
But anyway, I just think if you just left it as rentals, then there's a choice. We want people to develop in our community, and we want to have structures that propel them, and they want to feel.
But then again, this is going in the face of long-term versus short-term, like the Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Well, if it meant having a short term, it's better to have the structure in the township than not having it if the person can't afford to.
But then again, that's what I'm saying. We're in a housing crisis because we got too many Airbnbs in relation to providing long-term because they make more money.
I also
just don't think that's part of the plan.
Who are we speaking to?
Councillor Rodnick speaking.
I've had Councillor Rodnick, I've had a building that I've been renovating off and on. That I've rented since 1985. I can give you so many examples. I just think that unless you've rented these, you don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Let yourself.
Richard, I do understand the rental market. In being in banking for 30 years, I financed a lot of rental properties. But what we're talking here are two different things. Short-term rentals, Airbnbs, which are eating into the long-term rentals of providing housing for people that want to stay and live in South Algonquin. That's all I'm saying. We got to kind of pick our horse.
We certainly know more about financial management when it comes to structures than I do. But yeah. At today's cost of building, and based on our average age in our township, that's on the border of retiring, possibly no corporate pension, and likely the average income in our township, someone cannot afford to build a new building to rent at the amount of money that's required that they have to recover based on average income in their township. It's just not possible.
I think we're all talking about kind of the same thing, but different. We're talking about the whole short-term rental situation that's taking place versus long-term rentals. So I think we have to, I think that's what Councillor Pigeon started to try to say. That I think there is a difference here. In terms of the, Richard, in terms of the problems that we're having with short-term rentals and people coming in, buying property in this township, renting it at an exorbitant rate of rent and not having any use within the township. And basically, what I'm saying is that they're not part of the township. They're just here to make the money. And we're running into a whole host of problems, not only here, but in other municipalities and across province. So I think we're both trying to say the same thing, but we're coming at it from a different angle. So maybe what I suggest if we divide it,
the
short
official,
term, long term.
the
No,
official plan.
I agree with Richard that the cost is prohibitive, but I mean, you gotta pick which lane you wanna run in.
Right.
But
Once
the
we-
official plan is overall overarching legislation that enables, right? So when you get into things like short-term versus long-term, those are conversations for the zoning bylaw or for other forms of bylaws such as short-term rental bylaws. This is just enabling legislation that says,
Right.
hey, you can build a house and you can rent it, or you can build a house and you can use it. This is just additional units that says you have one home on your property, you can now have a second home on your property because the provincial government said you can do that. And that's all this is. How that is used is another legislation, which we'll get to in about a year. So,
Then rental it should just stay as a rental because
yeah, it is, that's why it's worded as in the way it is. It's an additional residential unit. So what the use of that is defined in our zoning bylaw.
okay, so
And if I may, to kind of summarize.
Bring
all
it
of
together
that,
as a planner.
And I will use my planner speak, but this policy that Councillor Pigeon's pointed out there, it really is a motherhood statement. It's not saying, it's not intended to define, differentiate between long-term, short-term. It's saying just that additional residential units are there. They're an alternative form of living that are a cost-effective way of doing that. And I think as Brian said, it's the place to implement that. And you'll see that further in the sections that follow immediately, 2.8.5.3, where we talk about, the zoning bylaws shall identify. So I think really, as Brian said, the zoning bylaws the place first, controlling that.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just would like to add something here, 219, page 31.
Okay.
Yeah, regards to short-term rental, how far you guys are on, but it's a plan. But how do you want to penalize the people who haven't?
It's going to be part of a bylaw that we're looking at in terms of short-term rental.
Yeah.
Which is a whole, going to be another issue.
Yeah.
And will be looked at,
So
because of what we're finding out from people.
the problem that I see, right, the all of the communities, the small community what we have, we should all be proud to get families in here to visiting, they spend money, they cannot afford the hotel there or the 3 hotels. So Airbnb is always more convenient for them or affordable for them. But then so if you go and raise, let's say, you have to buy for the township, like for an Airbnb, you have to buy a license, let's say a number of $3,000 a year, which or whatever, or maybe $500 a year or something like that. Then so it makes it much less affordable than for other people because you have to raise the thing. It has nothing to do with long-term rental crisis or whatever, but it's saying that the long-term rental crisis, right, they live here, right? So what do they spend here? Not very much, I would say. So if the township really want to have generate revenues, right, what they should do, so my thing, they should go and penalize every contractor who goes up there to the dump yeah, with the dump trailers and dump the stuff up there, they should go after that kind of way of revenues in that.
So section 219 that you're speaking of for short-term rentals,
Yeah.
all that is an enabling legislation. So that enables short-term rentals. Right now, they're not permitted. They're not in our official plan. So all we're doing is saying that those are a use that can happen in our community. So this is very high level. This doesn't restrict it. This here is saying short-term rentals are permitted. How that gets enacted or enabled
Yeah.
is another piece of legislation completely separate from this bylaw.
Yeah.
This bylaw just says right now, if you have an Airbnb, you're in contravention of my official plan. So technically, I should be taking you into court and having the judges decide what kind of fine you should get for having an Airbnb. This says, okay, now you can have an Airbnb.
Yeah.
That's what this is doing. This is very, very high level. This is the top level of legislation for planning purposes for the community. It's saying you can do this. Where before we were saying it wasn't in there. So if it's not strictly permitted in the bylaw, it's not permitted. This says you can do it now. And that's all we're doing is bringing it in so that it can be considered as an option. There's no requirement for council to regulate that.
Yeah.
It's now saying, yes, you can do that. And that's exactly where why that section's been added in, was to recognize that Airbnbs are an important part of our economy, and they are an important alternate source of accommodation for people coming to our community. We recognize that. And that's what this was for. And I'll turn it back to the planner who's nodding his head over there.
I think you summarized that quite well.
Thank you.
The policy in the official plan just allows council to monitor and to control Airbnbs through other zoning. And I think just to your point too, that, and as Tracy mentioned and Brian mentioned, it's ongoing and there will certainly be further discussions, and the time to bring forward those sorts of concerns will be when council is considering a short-term rental bylaw or licensing regime or that sort of thing. That would be to, come back out and provide your feedback then through that process.
Thank you very much. No, that's okay. Okay, where are we at now? Richard, are you okay? Just thought I'd check. Is there?
You did bring up a good point though. So if you know this, so it was like the other day I was thinking about it. If the official plan goes through, it is passed, everything is fine, and say down the line, something else new comes up and it's not in the official plan, then how do you deal with that? Do you make an amendment to the official plan?
Yes.
And you can do that, and that would have to go to the province for their okay before, okay, because it is a 10-year document.
Yep.
And I'm sure in 10 years things come up.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. So if say the province was to change the accessory or additional residential unit policies again, then council would simply adopt an amendment to the plan. If it was changes that required or that would, basically it would be typically the changes that the province makes supersede anything that's in the official plan anyways. But it's more of a convenience for staff and for residents, that if it was something to make it simpler, easier to read, easier to understand, then yeah, absolutely, council would just make those amendments.
So then should we talk about what the province stated that they didn't like about our plan, or is that for some other?
I think that there's a need to surmise that. I think we're having a public meeting on the 6th. And really, I think the request at that point is probably, I would recommend that council then ask our planners to go back and provide a complete summation of all of the public consultation with all of the recommendations and why they're recommending those things within those, all of the, from everything that they've gathered in the last year plus. And bring that back to council for council to decide whether they want to go yes or no, yes or no. There are some areas that I think that for Herbs and Anthony and myself agree on, that I believe we need to push a little bit back at the province because there's some areas that just don't make sense. But the one of our biggest challenge, one of the challenges that we found right away is that they provided us an oral summation. So the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing is acting as one window for all of the other provincial agencies. And years ago, the provincial agencies all provided through one window comments back to MMAH. MMAH then provided those comments in writing back to us. Well, MMAH has summarized those comments in their own language, not in the language that came from them, and then and told us that they wouldn't provide us the comments in writing, nor would they provide their own summation in writing. So here I've got, it's like the campfire story. Somebody's told her a story, and now she's told us a story, and now we're going to tell you a story. Well, has the story changed from the original author? Probably. So I think we need to go back and I'm probably going to go work with John and Ethel and try and get written documentation. That policy changed during the time that Minister Clark was the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. He's not there now. I think that somebody has to push back a little bit for them to provide us the written comments from the agencies so that we can understand where the changes are coming, why they're doing it, and whether or not it's a consistent application to provincial policies as it relates to how they're treating us versus others, because there were some really stupid things I thought that they'd made comment on through one of the ministries. And I don't feel that it's logical sense for development in a community. As Richard says, 20% of our land mass is in patent lands. All of the rest of it is in crown, and I can't do nothing with it. So I need to develop every acre that people want to develop in a manner that's conducive to good development within a community of our nature, while still maintaining the integrity of the community that we have. And so I think what we'll do is we'll have our public meeting, because we're legislated to have that final public meeting. And then I think that I would recommend council then make that recommendation that the planners go back and bring us bring back the consideration that you need.
So then, I guess my other question is, with the ministry, you said it was a 3 month before you got an answer.
Yep.
So is it, I mean, with the changes going on in the Ministry of Housing every day almost, do you think that's going to be 3 months or less or longer or maybe no response at all?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. Like as I said at the beginning, we don't really get the opportunity to send them another draft.
Right.
We will have to send them something that council has adopted for their ultimate adoption. But we do have the opportunity. We have the planner's attention for another month until she goes on maternity leave, but and then it'll be another planner at the ministry. But
and they'll have your own opinion as well.
So there's a little bit of a wild card there, but we do have a contact person. So if we do have specific questions, and we have had the ability, even in the week since we've met, that we've had some back and forth on some of the policies where she said something in the meeting and we've asked to clarify it, and she has provided some feedback in writing, which is nice. So I think to your point, we would, if there are questions, I think we would try to put them back in an email to the planner, or have another meeting with her, trying to set that up, so that we can get this as close to a document that everybody's happy with, that council's happy with, and that the ministry isn't gonna.
So do we have 400 municipalities trying to do official plans at the same time, or are they all staggered, or?
No,
It
they are
just must be a nightmare.
They are all staggered. But the other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of municipalities have an upper tier. So you have a township and you have a county government.
Right.
So a lot of municipalities across the province that have
Go through the county.
a county as their upper tier. The county is typically the approval authority for those lower tier official plans. It's just in places like District of Nipissing, Temiskaming, others where the province is the approval authority, who have to.
Well, maybe when the new mayors, the powers, can they do anything now? For example, North Bay has been given mayor the power,
Right.
the additional powers. So can he decide on this plan or look at it, or does it go to the province?
It would still be the provincial approval.
For sure?
of the plan. Yep, yeah, I am.
These are
confident in that.
pretty awesome powers that they've been given.
Certainly, and I mean, what the power that he would have would be to go through the document and make whatever changes he wanted.
Right.
Without going to council or overturning council's collective
Decision.
desires. He could, with those powers, make the changes, but ultimately the plan still then goes to the province and MMAH for approval.
Then why do we need councillors at all? Just let the mayor sit at the table and do what they want.
Exactly. It's another whole topic, isn't it? I don't like what members of council done, I'm just gonna change it, right, if I got those powers.
It certainly is a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Just a quick question to Anthony. As I was going through this document and I'm just thinking of the to-do list that will eventually occur.
Mhm.
And since you're so intimately knowledgeable of the document, do you give us like a to-do list, like bylaw required, section, I'm looking at various sections, bylaws required, like, just so, I mean, the people that hold this in their hands, the staff that have to implement this, at least it would give them a jump start to say, this plan told us we need a bylaw here. Is that something that comes from you as the producer of the plan, or?
Typically not, sort of to jump back on what Brian was mentioning, is that the official plan just gives the township and council the ability to implement the new bylaws, like we would not typically go through your official plan and say, these sections need a bylaw.
Oh, I see, the township may pass a bylaw under the municipal act, okay.
It gives the municipality the ability to get back on the short-term rental bylaw, right? By recognizing it in the official plan gives the municipality the ability to control it.
And the primary tool for implementation of the official plan is your zoning, comprehensive zoning bylaw. I mean, there's a few other little things such as do we or do we not want to deal with short-term rentals? Right, but for the majority part, we'll follow this up much like your council would have, Jane, in its day, with a comprehensive zoning bylaw review. That'll go through the same type of public consultation. By the time we get it implemented, we should be almost ready to, start looking at this all over again.
There is still a typo, in 8.3.3, talking about the landfill sites. I know, it was pointed out the last time we met that the Madawaska landfill site will be sufficient until 2020. And that obviously is not, so I don't know how long the landfill site is good for.
That's 67.
67?
Yes.
Well, we got the extension.
8.3.3, isn't it?
Because we updated Whitney
Yes,
to 2034.
yeah.
So if there is new information on Madawaska.
The 20, there's an error in there, definitely.
I think we have that.
We have capacity for a number of years, and I'm sure Richard is pretty well aware of that. They would have been involved in that while he was at the table.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an error for sure.
Thanks, Joan.
Good catch.
I think the last time it never got changed. That's why I have the old one sitting there.
Okay, anything else?
I would say 4 years ago with an extension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After
Some lengthy
Well,
discussion?
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah.
I think we have the information too, that Kevin would have it.
Okay, anything else? Anyone on Zoom want to add anything or say anything? I don't want to close off or cut this off with it for anyone. It's been really good, lively discussion anyways. Appreciate that.
Correct.
Is there any fee that the people have to pay that they bring all the garbage up there? I mean, the town, if they have to grind it down, costs a lot of money. The guy who sits up there costs money too. So, if I see always, I'm going quite often up there, bring my recycling stuff there and so on. And then I'm gonna go, I have a little bit sometimes, yeah, but you can do nothing more with it, and it's, you cannot recycle it either, so. And then I see up there like that, I mean, there is so much garbage up there. I cannot believe this in one way, right? So, and then I have to say myself, I said that to my wife, you know what? I think we all have new houses here. If you see that garbage up there, it's unbelievable. Now, it costs nothing, right, to drive up there. Now, they're coming up from Barry's Bay, you remember? That guy, with the dump truck, and then I said, I've seen that dump truck once before, and I drove behind him, I did. And when I asked him, because he may get upset if somebody drives behind you, and then I waited, and I drove up, and he came up to dump and dumped the garbage at me. Now he came from Barry's Bay. Now, we don't know which kind of address he gives, so all that you have to give up that guy, you have to give him an address. So he may be lied to him, the guy has nothing he can do. So, but if you would charge a fee, at least it pays the gentleman who sits up there. And then I think that it's fair, the township has to pay for the machine who grinds it down and so on, and I heard it before. It is, I think that, I know we moved in here 5 years ago, from Oro, we had to pay down there for the garbage. And I know, how do I prove it? I've seen it myself, and I think a lot of people agree to that. That garbage dump up there is abused, but comes out of the area, not even the township. You pay taxes, fine, if you say it doesn't cost you nothing, but on the other hand, you have to, I think that should talk about it. I know it costs money too for for the contractors, but it doesn't matter, right? The contractor always, he makes pretty decent money, and then so if he pays, let's say, I don't know what the outcome would be. Hopefully I didn't hurt anybody, but it's just that I'm gonna want to mention it.
Yeah,
If
no,
I'm
you're,
allowed to. So.
We do have fees.
we do have, we have a schedule of fees for people that's bringing in garbage to the dump. We can probably give you a copy of that, what it does cost. And the waste management attendant there, will, if he sees mattresses or other things coming in, he will have a fee. And it comes back to the township. So there is a schedule of fees, and we'll give you that
Gonna stop.
for the township.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, and but
It's
just,
fair enough, yeah.
yeah, and just to your point, there's, you know, it's really interesting because the people that have lived in this township for a long time, there's two things that they really like in this township. And I'm not excluding, you know, the fresh air and the wilderness and all of the recreational things that we have, but they're very proud of their roads and their waste management. And if we were to start adding fees, and I take your point, but we would have quite an uproar from some of our longtime residents here. Because they do go, and I have to admit, when we first started the recycling program, it's not the best, but there is a lot of our residents that are using that program. So, I just, you know, I welcome you to the township, and I appreciate your comments, but those are some of the things that our long-term residents really rely on.
Yeah, that's okay, thank you.
Okay.
And the tipping fees are going to be increased as well too.
Yeah, we've increased them this year.
Yeah,
Fees? Are they increased?
they already are.
Oh,
They've been increased this year.
Yeah, they already increased. They have, so like probably the dump truck that you saw coming up was maybe from Ale Lake or somewhere like that, that is part of our township, that was bringing a demolition to the township. And what happens is, as they come in, the landfill site attendant takes down their information, and the office here invoices them. I can tell you there was a demolition of a house not long ago, and I think the tipping fees was in the point of $4 to $6 grand. So there is revenue coming in, but like Mayor Valley said, residents like not to have to pay for their household waste. So we're trying to have a balance there, is where you as a resident can still bring in your household waste, but if you're doing new development, you're going to pay to leave these for that.
That's fine.
And we have, as you probably know, just a side thing, there's what they call a Walmart down there where people take things that they no longer want, that someone maybe wants to use. And there's a little building there and they go back and they look at all the books and take things back and forth. So, I have people in this township saying, oh, I'm going down to Walmart today. I'm going, what's Walmart, right? But it's a little building that's down there that people reuse.
I just mentioned,
Yeah.
Before that, he came from Barry's Bay, because
Okay.
I seen it in Barry's Bay, and I looked, that dump truck was full. It is an older truck, I cannot tell you what kind of.
No,
truck
no, I
it is.
understand.
And the license plate either, because I would not do that, but
Right.
I haven't seen it when he drove up today.
Yeah.
Twice, actually.
That's too
So,
bad. Yeah, and that's
he
trying,
may-
go ahead. No, go ahead.
He may charge down their money, and then he said, oh, I was up to Whitney, it doesn't cost me nothing.
But that's where our waste management attendant
So, but if it
would
stops
be able
now,
to
it's good.
say, look, you can't do that, or may recognize maybe he's just borrowed a truck from Barry's Bay and he's from the township. So I don't know the particulars about it, but it's something that we will bring to his attention, and ask him to look out for.
And it is certainly not permitted. Our environmental compliance certificate that we have from the Ministry of the Environment does not allow us to receive waste from any place that's not the township of South Algonquin, period, full stop. So I respect that you believe that it's come from Barry's Bay. We'll be looking at having our staff try and look a little more diligently at some of those. But there is always the chance it could be like somebody like Karski's truck, who does a lot of work within our township. And he's from Barry's Bay. He comes up, he goes down into Allen Lake, he picks up a load and he takes it to the dump. These things, it is possible. I'm not saying that it happened that way, but we do ask for identification, and we do ask them for an address of where the materials are coming from. And so, is it possible for it to happen? Sure. But we've also had some recent talks, and we're kind of way off target here. We have had recent talks about waste and a recent meeting, and there are some changes in the wind that will help reinforce that, I believe.
But thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to try to summarize, if I may. I just appreciate all the input. Points are well taken, and I want to thank former Mayor Jane Dumas and former Councilor Richard Giles for just continuing to have an interest in the township. We really appreciate it. If I may, do you have anything you want to add, Anthony, before I summarize?
No, I think, just to echo your points there, some very good feedback again, and just reiterate what I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting is that, we're still taking comments from council and members of the public, and right up until we send that document to the ministry. So, I would again invite feedback, and particularly, if there's anything else you think of later, then you want to email, find that specific sentence you were looking for, and I will send it in to us. And yeah.
Okay. Anyone on Zoom want to make any concluding comments? Okay, then if I don't see anyone else, I'm going to say thank you again very much. Please feel free to come back at 6 o'clock in Madawaska if you like. I think most of us will be there. So thanks, everyone.